Today I'm going to be taking a look at the ACU Archery SOS Hunter Kit on my hunting bow here today. And I had really strong opinions on it on my Olympic style recurve, and I figured I might as well grab the Hunter Kit and put it on my compound, and that way I can review it and let you know if it makes a difference on a compound. Yeah, I mean, it really works. So like I said there in the intro, I've already reviewed the ACU Archery SOS Kit, the full-blown kit, on my Olympic style recurve. I shot it head-to-head against no SOS kit on my recurve. And to put it in a nutshell, in case you haven't seen that video, I actually shot dramatically better without the ACU Archery SOS Kit because it just was so different. I've shot for decades a very specific way with my Olympic style recurve, and I feel like it just didn't mesh with the style, the way that I shoot my bow. And you know, I shoot compound as well. It's a little bit different of a game, and I saw they had the Hunter Kit, and I wanted to put it on my compound and try it. If you're interested in checking out the review on my recurve, I will have links down in the description below and a card at the top up there for you to check out in case you haven't seen that video yet. And I just want to remind you that I am not sponsored by anyone, proudly. I used to be, and I'm no longer a professional archer in the sense that I'm sponsored by any single or any company in the archery industry. I get to produce these unbiased reviews so you can make a better decision when it comes to spending your hard-earned money on some archery products. And if you are interested in grabbing this SOS kit or anything for that matter, check out the many different links down in the description below. Those are affiliate links, and it helps support this channel, and it helps keep me producing these unbiased reviews so you can get some real honest feedback, and you're not getting fed some stuff from some pro shooters because they're paid to promote the product. So first, what I'm going to do to start this review off is I'm actually going to take this SOS off my bow and get warmed up here at 50 meters. I've got a target down there, and I have a 6-power scope, I believe, might even be 4-power, I'm not even sure, on this bow here. Obviously, normally I'm just running a multi-pin sight, but with a magnifying lens in, I'll be able to see more movement, and I'll be able to see if this thing makes any difference. What's different about this one compared to the full-blown kit is that it's not very adjustable. You can't point it in many different directions because it's got a single QDC here that you mount against the bow, and then it kind of offsets where you can then bolt on the SOS kit. Now this one has just this setup here with these weights. These are Cerakoted, really nice actually, nice brown or tan Cerakote rather. And so the whole thing is really flat and dull, which is great. It's not going to catch any light and, you know, make some shiny spots up in the trees. But this only has one kit itself. There's not an adjustable one where it's kind of non-biased and one that is biased. This one is biased, but not with a weak or stiff wire orientation. Bias meaning in this fashion here, up and down it's very stiff, left and right it's very weak, and then I can turn it 90 degrees, up and down being very weak, left and right being very stiff. So depending on your aiming pattern, and if you're struggling with dip bangs or up and down movement or left and right movement, you change the orientation of this thing to mitigate, take out those errors, either up, down, or left, right. So it should be really nice once I actually get dialed in and pay attention to my sight picture movement here during this warm-up end. I'll see is my movement primarily up and down or left and right, and then see if I can take it out with the SOS and turn it and adjust it. So like I said, I'm here at 50 meters and I'm just going to shoot 6 or so arrows each end, and I'll describe to you my aiming pattern, what I'm seeing in the actual sight picture after each shot, so that way you'll be able to see if it's making any difference. Now I do also have the Mantis, and that gives you a stability score, but frankly I don't see a correlation between the stability score and how stable my aiming pattern is. I think it's a fun little gimmick to kind of play with, but I mean, honestly, I really just don't see a direct correlation to stability score, aiming pattern, arrow impact score, or anything like that. And so for me, it's more trouble than it's worth at this point for me, and so I'm just not going to put it on the bow. It's better for me to just describe to you my aiming pattern, because I think there's a whole lot more going on than just the bow movement. You have to take into consideration, you know, the anchor and the whole body overall. So all that being said, I'm just going to shoot some arrows and get warmed up here. So that one, the sight kind of just sat in the bottom of the 10 ring. It drifted over about midway through the execution when I was going to set the release off. Drifted to the right side of the 10 ring and then settled back down to the bottom by the time it went off. Pretty steady, pretty stable. That one started at the top of the 10, sat in the middle, dropped down to the bottom of the 9 ring on the lower right side, and then it broke. That one sat real good in the middle and then danced to the right side of the 10 ring, jumped to the left edge of the 9/8 line, and then it broke as it was heading back to the middle. That one just kind of danced around in the 10 ring, and then right before it went off, it kind of bobbed down to the bottom edge of the 10 ring and broke. That one sat real good in the top of the X, went up a little, headed to the right edge of the 10 ring, and then broke as it was moving back to the middle. So I'm seeing a lot of up and down for sure. I'm also seeing some left and right too. I'm not like super in tune with this bow. I don't shoot a ton of compound, so I'm not super fresh, but I have done my best to optimize my stabilizers to help this bow hold as still as possible. So I have done a little bit of effort there to try to get this bow to hold really steady. That one kind of just danced up and down in the X ring, floated a small bit to the right as it was going off. Yeah, and that one just center of the X, top of the 10, center of the X, top of the 10, and just bounced up and down right when it went off. It was somewhat near the middle as far as I could tell. So overall, I can tell you that the bow is just not super steady. I mean, it's good. It's not that bad, considering it's a hunting bow with, you know, really short stabilizers. It's quite steady, but I think there's a little bit I could squeeze out of this thing. You know, if I really wanted to super optimize this, I would really want to move this back bar down and low, but there's just nothing to mount anything to down here on this Hoyt Spider 34. It's an older bow, and there's just wasn't very popular to mount stuff down on the bottom here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go down and pull the arrows. I'm going to put this ACU Archery SOS on the bow, and I'm going to put it in the orientation that they said to help remove up and down variations. Basically, what it showed was that in one fashion, it's a little weaker compared to the other, depending on the orientation. You can do all sorts of different things because you just basically bolt through the black part, the base, and it bolts into the actual bracket that comes with the kit that you then mount on the bow here. And I've got mine mounted just out the bottom of the main stabilizer bushing. That way it'll help keep the mass weight nice and low. Also help me keep my canting to a minimum, acting a bit as a plumb bob. With all that being said, I'm gonna go down and get this thing mounted on the bow, and then I'll let you know if there's any difference in the aiming pattern when I'm done. So to give you an idea as to what my groups were down there, my group singular, 7 arrows, left to right spread was roughly the width of the yellow, the gold, and up and down was roughly the height of the 10 ring. That is an 80 centimeter face down there, kind of the standard face for 50 meter shooting. So as I get this thing installed on here, it's important to know that the orientation can change. See how it's wide in this configuration and narrow in that configuration? So the up and down motion or the left and right motion, you can adjust the actual stiffness in the different planes of movement. And so because I'm having a difficult time with the up and down a little bit more so than the left and right. I'm gonna mount it so it's stiff in the up-down configuration because I believe that's what's supposed to remove up and down movement. So right now, it's stiff up and down and very weak left and right. So I can move it a lot left and right like that, but just not a lot up and down. And again, I'll do the same thing and describe to you what I'm seeing in my sight picture. Definitely makes a difference on the compound as well. I saw a difference with the recurve, and so what I just saw was the pin really, it felt like it wanted to leave the 10 ring vertically, but it didn't. It was incredibly stable. It stayed pretty much, my dot stayed touching the X ring the whole time. It definitely felt like it wanted to move up and down, but it wasn't. But I felt a wiggle, not even necessarily a side movement, but the bow wiggling left and right. You know, this is a high let-off bow, and so it doesn't feel overall super stable at full draw. Obviously, with pretty much 1 ounce on my front rod, it's not super stable overall, but I definitely noticed a difference in the actual aiming pattern so far. Yeah, it's basically staying in the 10 ring. It feels heavy because it definitely added a few ounces of mass weight overall, but it's surprisingly way more stable here with the compound. It had one dip out the bottom where the dot touched the 8 ring down low, but I was able to get it back to the center before the shot broke. It's kind of an issue that I was having with my recurve, is that it would get stuck. Like, it would move off target and get stuck, and I couldn't get it back. It was too lazy. No matter how light I made the actual SOS kit, it just was stuck and didn't want to move back to the center. Whereas this, it feels like it's a little bit more intuitive or kind of standard with how the actual aiming pattern is. Yeah, I mean, that one, the shot went a little long. The dot was glued inside the 10 ring, pretty much touching the X the whole time. About halfway through that shot, as far as the execution, it drifted out to the right and immediately moved back to the middle, which I'm really happy to see. Like I said, I'm so glad that it's not sticking off to the side. It still is intuitively moving right back to the center, and for sure, it is dramatically more steady. That one sat a little low, but I think that was my issue. I don't think I was strong enough in the bow arm. It didn't dip low, it just kind of drifted low and just sat there. But I think that was my fault. Yeah, even again, same thing. The shot went a little long. I was, you know, feeling a bit of pre-shot anticipation of come on. It just wasn't breaking, right? But surprisingly steady. No jitters, no shakiness on that one, even though it went a little long. Yeah, I mean, super steady. I would say the up and down movement is really minimal, if at all anything. It's quite steady. I'm gonna go down and get them and change the orientation left and right and see if I feel a difference there. The original SOS kit, I never tried the bias because I didn't really have a bias issue there. But I'm curious to see what will happen with the left and right and see if it takes out some of that. Like, it's not like the bow moves left and right like this. It's like the bow's moving left and right like this. It's a torque wobble left and right. We'll see if we can get rid of that, turning this thing 90 degrees. So the group that end was a little bit smaller. Left and right, it was almost the width of the 10 ring. I had one arrow out the left that was like a 9.8 out the left. The vertical group was still the vertical height of the 10 ring. So no massive change there, but it was definitely a fair bit tighter. Okay, so now I've got it weak in the up-down fashion, as you can see, and stiff in the left-right configuration. It's going to be interesting to see if I notice a difference in the pattern here. Yeah, I mean, it really works. Up and down, it's touching 8 ring in both the top and bottom, and the left and right, it didn't move off the X left and right. That's crazy. It was super steady. And then it moved way up in the 8 ring, came down to the bottom of the 10 ring, went way up in the 8 ring. But again, like no movement left and right. That one was a little better. I'd shot a much better shot on that one. Super steady, slowly drifted down like low tweener 10 and then went off. Probably was a similar shot to the end previous where it was really kind of wagging left and right. And I could feel the bow wanted to kind of flip left and right there, but the stabilizing system, the SOS, seemed to help because the dot, it kind of wiggled left, right 10, but it didn't move off the 10 ring. Definitely went long on that one. Not super steady. Left and right was still okay. It never left the 10 ring left and right. Up and down, it was all over the place, but not very jittery. Still fairly steady and definitely not as wild as it can get, at least how it has been in the past without this thing. That one sat good in the X, went up to the top of the 9 ring, down to the bottom of the 10, up to the top of the 10 ring, up to the 9 ring, just up, down, up, down, up, down, but left and right again, still super steady. Yeah, I definitely really much prefer it in the other configuration where it's stiff in the up-down axis. This weak up-down is no good for me. I think my main issue is a dip or something similar to a dip when I'm trying to get the shot to break. So it's going to be real simple here to just turn it 90 degrees, put it back to that configuration that I seem to like and snug it up. And now stiff up down and weak left and right. So it is interesting that it definitely shows me that I can tell a difference between where it is stiff in the up down fashion versus the left right fashion. And it's interesting here because These wires are the stiff wires. In the other kit, they've got stiff and weak wires. The way they did the bias in the other kit was it was 2 stiff wires and 2 weak wires in a standard X fashion, where they were, straight 90 degrees from each other, each wire, whereas these are a little bit tighter at the top, tighter at the bottom, and that makes it stiffer in the up-down, but not the left-right. So it's interesting to me that they are manipulating the stiffness of these using 2 different methods, the spacing of the wires as well as the strand count of the wires as well, to make them stiffer or weaker. It's interesting to see that they're modulating the way this thing aims using 2 completely different methods. So I'm going to go down and pull those arrows, check the group size, and shoot one more end with the saws in the configuration that I like, and then I'll give you some final thoughts as to what I think about this SOS Hunter Kit. So as far as the group down there on that last end, it was definitely the best end vertically, with the exception of one big flyer that was high. Big meaning if my group was centered, because I'm hitting a little bit low, I was basically, would have been 9/8 liner out the top. The rest vertically were within the X ring as far as the height. Left and right spread was about the width of the 10 ring. So I definitely am not seeing a massive change in the grouping. Now obviously that's just an end here or there. You'd need to shoot many more arrows to get an idea of if this thing's actually making a difference. That was a little shocking. Went off a little early for me. It sat in the middle, went up to the top of the 9 ring, came down on the bottom of the 10, and it went off. So it wasn't really a super steady shot here. Yeah, it's really steady, much steadier than without it. So I'm gonna leave 3 arrows to finish this end without this ACU Archery SOS Hunter on, and I'll see if it makes a dramatic difference or a noticeable difference when I take it off. Yeah, it hung out on the right edge of the 10 ring and then slowly moved its way to the X, and that thing just sat right on top of the X. Maybe at 1 or 2 o'clock, just super steady, didn't want to move. Definitely one of the more steady shots as far as it moving so far. Yeah, it kind of sat in the X, kind of went up to the right, came back down, and then it broke as it was sitting pretty much on the center. So it's very, very slow to move. Not hard to get a reaction out of it when the pin is off the center. With my recurve, I saw a very different sight picture, and I'll explain that to you after I shoot these next 3 arrows. I want to take this thing off and shoot my last 3 arrows without it to see if I notice a difference now that I've shot a few arrows with this thing on. I'm imagining I'm going to see a big difference here as far as the resistance to movement, because I remember this bow being a bit more jittery, or my sight picture being a bit more jittery. Yeah, I mean, it's like night and day difference really between with it and without it. Without it, it's the movement of the pin is almost anxiety inducing, because you want it to be in the middle. It's crazy. It's like on that one, the dot was touching the 9 ring and it just went woo, and then it kind of, it's just all over the place. It's staying within the yellow, very fast moving, and not confidence instilling. That one sat pretty good. It was touching the X or within the 10 ring the entire time, but it was quite jittery, really. So the difference is, like, when the movement is just floating, that's one thing, but when it's like jittery, it's another thing. Jittery all over the place is not confidence instilling. That one in particular was more in the center. The pattern of the jitter was much tighter, so it didn't really bring up anxiety, but the shot before, the sight just moving around and then jittering afterwards, like I said, it just doesn't instill confidence in the actual shot, and it can distract you. At least it distracts me sometimes from the execution, from actually setting the release off how I want to set it off, or at least how I'm trying to set it off. So the difference that I'm seeing with this kit on the compound compared to recurve is that I like it a whole lot more on my compound than I do on my recurve. So I believe there's a massive difference in how you execute the shot with a recurve bow compared to a compound. A recurve is far more subconscious in the way you aim. So meaning when I'm executing the shot, it's not a conscious effort to try to hold the dot still. What it is a conscious effort to exert pressure within the system by driving my bow arm with pressure where I want the arrow to go in the middle. So even if my sight pin is off the center of the target, like it's over here, I'm not saying off the target, but not in the middle, if it's off, my bow arm pressure is still driving the arrow towards the center. And when I make a shot, when the sight's over here, the bow just makes this micro correction at the end, and I'm still able to shoot plenty of 10s that way. And it is really different in the way that I shoot the shot with and without the ACU Archery SOS kit on my recurve, because when it moves off to the center without it, its next move is immediately back to the center with my recurve. But when I put it on, it would move to the, off the target, move off center, and just stick. And even though my pressure is still going back to the middle, even though my eyes are still on the middle, it just wouldn't move back to the center, and it felt really lazy. Even in the lightest configuration, even with it in its detuned settings, like trying to point it in various different ways to get the reaction to actually be reduced, almost to the point of where I didn't even notice that it was on as far as the movement is concerned. And overall, I just really didn't like it on my recurve. I did say that maybe it would work with compound, and because I've been shooting compound, I wanted to get one and put it on my compound and see if it made a difference. And in fact, it still makes a huge difference, but it's way more intuitive compared to the Olympic style recurve. Shooting fingers on a single string bow without a draw stop is so different because there's so much variation. You can vary your draw length, you can vary the vertical height much more. You can vary the individual finger pressure on the string, changing the individual balance of the limb at full draw. And there's just a lot of movement that's going on that this kit it seemed to enhance all the bad things of recurve as far as what I was feeling. I think if I grew up shooting it with the recurve, it'd be okay. But with the compound, it really seems to work well because there is no draw length variance. Not really, because I am against the stops. There might be small amounts of variance, but not like there is on recurve. The limbs are not going to be imbalanced, and overall, it's just a much more consistently steady system, meaning the bow itself, as a machine, this is a far superior machine than a recurve bow, a single string bow. And so I think that this isolates the movement because there's not a lot of movement in the system. The movement is truly just the bow or the human, or the human system and the bow together. It's not the bow, meaning the limbs moving independent, the draw length moving and changing, and all of those other factors that can happen on a recurve. So because this is a far more efficient, far more stable platform, the bow itself, this ACU Archery SOS stabilization optimization system or something like that seems to really, really match well with how the shot goes, how archery goes with a compound. So overall, I really like it, and I like the price point as well. It's much cheaper in this configuration compared to the adjustable angular section with the two different wire basket things with the quick disconnect and all that. The price is almost double for the other system, and this puts it in a much more affordable range as far as getting in and trying this and seeing if you like it. Now, on a tournament style bow, it seems like it would work just fine, because especially a lot of the more modern ones, there's some bushings down in the bottom that you should be able to mount this thing to, and it'll point in a relatively optimal position, or you just mount it behind the stabilizer like I've got here. It was very easy to set up. The finish of the product is very nice itself. You know, there's some things here or there that I wish was a little different. The quick disconnect seems to be Cerakoted. Everything is definitely Cerakoted, but it's like the quick disconnect has a lot of Cerakote on it, and I had a hard time actually getting my stabilizer to thread into the quick disconnect little knob thing without wanting to cross thread the piece, because there seemed to be a little bit of an excessive amount of the Cerakote or something that was preventing it from wanting to screw in. So it's going in nice and straight now, but it really wanted to cross thread for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I was just having some hard time getting this thing to go together compared to other quick disconnects. Now that it's threading in and out and it seemed to clear out whatever was there, it's acting much better for sure. And really the only other thing that is lacking is just that their logo, the way that it's laser etched in it, is off center on the actual product. It's not a big deal. It's just off low right. Somebody may have just quickly put these up in a jig and hit, you know, go, and it was slightly off center. Not a big deal. It's just, you know, you're paying a lot of money, and I like to see stuff centered. I really spend time with our products that we have here at Kaminski Archery to laser etch them as dead center as I possibly can, because I'm a little obsessive about that for whatever reason. So I just think it really represents the company well if you really show a high level of detail and care about every tiny little thing, even if it's just cosmetic. So overall, I think this is a really good system for hunting. It's much more simple compared to the adjustable bracket. I prefer this so much more. I would probably mount this on any tournament rig as well, because it's just simple. There's not as much going on, and so there's not as much to have an issue with, but it's not as tunable. This thing did add a bit of heft, but obviously you have to have that because it is a weight. And like I said earlier in the video, I'm not sponsored. Proudly, I specifically keep it this way so I can keep these reviews truly unbiased, so you can make better decisions when it comes to spending your hard-earned money on archery products. And like I said, if you're interested in this Archery SOS kit or anything else, especially at Lancaster Archery Supply, because that's what I have affiliate links from down in the description below, if you click those links or add code Kaminski at checkout, you don't get any discount, unfortunately, but it helps track your order and links it to my channel, and it does help benefit this channel and allows me to produce more of these unbiased reviews in the future. Also, I do have discount codes down in the description below for Arcor grips as well as the Push Archery. And if you want to grab any of their products, if you use the same code Kaminski at checkout, you'll get 10% off of any of their gear. And I can't thank my supporters enough, as well as the people that click those links. Without you, I wouldn't be able to produce this content, at least not to this level. So thanks.